Riding is therapy. It makes the young feel invigorated and invincible. It makes the old feel young. It can lift the weight of stress from your shoulders and can bring a clarity of vision and a sea of clouded thoughts. But can it ride you away from politics? Aside from sharing our rides with you, I don't really do social media anymore, because I realized years ago that it's become, let's say, unproductive. And nothing you say to nameless, faceless people on the internet is going to sway them from their preconceived biases, reaching such a feverish pitch of late that now people don't even want to participate in honest conversation anymore. So now there's Twitter versus Threads, Twitter versus Blue Sky, Facebook versus Truth Social, and we live in a world that's become so divided along tribal lines that you hear stories of people letting go of lifelong friends, of boycotting holidays, excommunicating family members. Have you ever done this? To me, they always seemed like crazy extreme stories, a step beyond the reasonable. Until last week. Last week, my wife had to block someone from messaging her on social media, attacking her quite viciously, hatefully, and irrationally for the crime of having an opposing opinion. A person we had known casually for over 15 years. A person in the motorcycle industry of all things, who I had previously thought was an otherwise intelligent and sane person. But today's political climate seems to foster insanity. So, we went for a ride, because riding is therapy. And it got me to thinking, how did we get to this point where civility is a bygone concept, where compromise is a tribal transgression, and where common sense is no longer common? The Great American Experiment is a term used to describe the United States experiment in self-government and democracy from the American Revolution to today. Conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, with individual member states that elect individuals to represent their interests at the federal level. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, built on a framework of checks and balances that can be amended over time to ensure it is so. A framework that's been amended 27 times. John Winthrop famously proclaimed in a 1630 sermon that we shall be as a city upon a hill. He was referring to the city of Boston, settled by the Puritans of the time, and he was paraphrasing from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, which said, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden." It remained an obscure reference for centuries until Ronald Reagan placed that line at the center of his political career, with historians and political leaders reinterpreting it as a foundational basis for the idea of American exceptionalism. Since then, Winthrop's text has been quoted by almost every president to ever hold office. John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, and even Barack Obama. Reagan created a powerful articulation of American exceptionalism, stating that there was some divine plan that placed this great continent between two oceans to be sought out by those who were possessed of an abiding love of freedom and a special kind of courage. American exceptionalism, as summarized by the phrase "city on a hill," became the embodiment of the enduring American spirit and the American dream. A dream that I still believe in. But somewhere along the line, we strayed from government of the people, by the people. Eddie Murphy made a movie in 1992 called The Distinguished Gentleman, where he plays a con man who gets elected to Congress and famously quotes, "The being in Washington is the biggest con game of them all." I've long used the analogy that Washington has become the decadent elite ruling class of the Capitol in the Hunger Games. And Stanley Tucci's character, Caesar Flickerman, yeah, he's the media, spinning fanciful narratives about the contestants. That's you, me, and every other working class man and woman. We've come to a surreal moment where those long dismissed as conspiracy theorists now stand vindicated. Their warnings, once ridiculed as paranoia, proving to be prescient truths obscured by time, deception, and willful ignorance, revealing the breadth of the iceberg beneath the surface where over time, the government, once a beacon of integrity and service, has succumbed to the slow decay of corruption, where power is hoarded, self-interest overshadows duty, and the public good is sacrificed at the altar of greed and ambition. And it begs the question, how is it that the revelation of staggering corruption is met with apathy rather than outrage? Have we become so desensitized to deception, so resigned to the decay of integrity, that injustice no longer stirs us to action? How are people not beside themselves? But far from that, how have we gotten to a place where tribal alliances convince people to defend what is obviously broken? Seems like common sense has left the building. Things that were proudly advocated for by previous presidents and their followers are vilified today by the very same people in a show of pure tribal affiliation and historical ignorance. In the year 2000, the U.S. was $5 trillion in debt over a 225-year history. Now, in 2025, not even 25 years later, the U.S. is $36 trillion in debt. Most people can't even fathom $1 trillion. Most can't even fathom $1 billion, much less 1,000 billions. So back to writing, because writing is therapy. And I thought writing transcended these things. But then I saw an up-and-coming creator who crafts deeply stirring videos that capture the soul of an aging writer, whom I like very much and whose content resonates with me and connects with me, post a politically motivated video shortly after the election expressing anxiety and fear for the very lives of their friends and acquaintances. You see, they live in the Northwest Progressive Hub. Their blue sky handle is in their descriptions. Their tribal politics are written on their sleeve. And truthfully, it just made me sad. Sad that a talented storyteller where every mile is a reflection and every open road a meditation on time and freedom had been led to see enemies of neighbors that they probably see every day, that they share most of the same everyday struggles with, that they share most of the same goals and aspirations with. And then, it just made me mad that those we entrust to be our voice instead weave illusions, peddling half-truths and divisions, not to serve the people, but to tighten their grip on power, turning unity into discord and governance into a game of deception. They spin their Caesar Flickerman narratives about us to sow division, hatred, and even fear between us, so they can control all of us. But we too are to blame. Somewhere along the line, we've abdicated our responsibility as citizens to find common ground, to work with each other, to compromise with each other, despite our differences. A nation's greatest downfall is not the tyranny of its leaders, but the complacency of its people. When we, as citizens, trade vigilance for comfort and duty for apathy, our freedom's not lost, it's surrendered. And when tribalism replaces reason, they no longer serve the Republic, but the factions that divide it. And I guess that creator got attacked beyond his level to endure, and he took the video down, because it's gone now. But it struck me that even the pure freedom of the open road, once untouched by the weight of the world, has been tainted by the creeping shadow of this political tribalism. I've always thought, as riders, we cross these boundaries of disagreement. But I can tell you this, I'll always be part of this riding community. I'll always see you as a rider first, and I'll always ride with you.